Welcome to Beyond the Buzzer, where real hoop stories get the spotlight. I'm your host, Brian Wethers, former Division I athlete and overseas pro. Each week I sit down with players, coaches, and grinders who lived the game but didn't always reach the dream. From college standouts to overseas warriors, this is where we unpack the truth. Behind the journey, the highs, the lows, the heartbreak, and life after the final buzzer.
He's on his way, he's about to get paid, he's on his way to Hollywood. He's on his way, he's about to get paid, he's on his way to Hollywood. Show him the way, he's about to...
Fans, welcome back to the show. This is your host, Brian Wethers. We are KF and JF Podcast, and this is Beyond the Buzzer. Today we got a very special guest, good friend of mine. But before I introduce him, let's see if you remember who this is. Okay, here we are back to the show. First, before we introduce the guests, I want to thank all of you for just engaging in the show. Your comments mean the world. I appreciate just all the feedback and your viewership, and thank you. Without further ado, we have today's guest, Mr. GEOFF GORHAM. Jeff is a Cal alum, so I'm excited to have him here. And Jeff, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself and, walk us through your journey?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's funny. I'm those of you that are watching that do know me, that know that everybody goes, hey, it's the football guy. It's the football guy. But I've been covering, high school and college football and college basketball for the last 10 years. But people that do know me know that I started out as a basketball player first and foremost. In fact, I grew up, my father, Yeah, I was okay. I grew up, my father was a longtime coach in Riverside for 50 years. John Gorham, who's in the Riverside Sport Hall of Fame. I was born into basketball, to say the least. He was coaching at Norte Vista, I think, starting in '68. I was born in '70, and I was a gym rat. There was no choice about what I was going to do, because at that time, you're a coach. You're busy all the time with the team, summer, early morning practices. I was a gym rat, so I became a basketball player through my father. My older brother Justin was another really good player, but yeah, I played through the system. I played with some great players. Played with Magic Johnson. Played with Kareem. Played against Shaq. I had some great teammates in Tracy Murray, who's the all-time leading scorer in the history of California. Played with Harold Miner. So yeah, basketball has been a staple in my life. I played overseas like you did. I've been blessed to play the game that got me to travel. Yeah. It got me my education, and it kind of it made me what I am now as a man, a father, a husband. And what I do now is, I broadcast with Pep Fernandez. Those of you know Pep. Pep has been my mentor and partner for the last decade. I've called probably 600 Division I basketball games. I've called Division I football. I'm the voice of RCC football. They won the national championship. I still wear this because they gave it to me as their broadcaster. But basketball has really just been my life, and really the stepping stone to everything I've been able to do in the media world. It made me media savvy by, I think when I played with bravado and kind of an arrogant. I was kind of a shithead, to be honest with you. But I played with emotion, and I loved the game more than I think anybody.
Could you talk about growing up in that era where we live now, the social media age, and guys post a lot of things? It was a lot more grittier and behind the scenes. So I guess when you're working out, when you name some major hitters, you had Harold Miner, Tracy Murray. What was it like growing up out of that social media age where not everyone kind of knew each other through, seeing each other just on TV or a show? How was it growing up in a time where it was just quiet and really about just gritty?
It was all ball, and it was tough. It was a lot tougher. Social media now, you don't have to go out and watch players.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I remember there was down at the Run, Shoot, and Dunk League, or whatever it was called, for the high school kids. Travel ball was not hundreds of teams at the time. There was maybe 10 teams, And I played for, I think, probably the best travel ball club in the history of California. I played on Dana and David Pump's first travel ball team.
Yes.
Pump and Run was the thing, and we had the guys that were on my team. This just tells you how small basketball was back then. As you had, like I said, you had Tracy Murray, you had Harold Miner, Danny Griffin, who was a phenomenal athlete and player, Adonis Jordan, who's probably University of Kansas' best point guard in history. So these guys were my teammates, and we played a lot of pickup games, and in order to be seen, people would have to go out and watch you. We'd have these big travel ball tournaments, not like they are now. It was a league, and it was a Slam and Jam. Remember, Slam and Jam was huge. So Izzy Washington, really kind of got me going, got my start, introduced me to the Pump Brothers, and because of that, I was able to play at the Nike ABCD camp, played in the Boston Shootout, Kentucky Prep Festival, and I was able to see the world, that something I could have never done if I didn't play basketball. But basketball back then was, you didn't have gyms to go out and shoot around in all the time. So I spent the majority of my time on the asphalt.
Yeah.
I lived next to an elementary school, and all I did is shoot baskets. And luckily I had a dad that liked to shag balls, my brother. I shot 1,000 shots a day, every day. So we went on vacations. Dad found the local, high school or the park, and we got our 1,000 shots in. If I was sick, I still got my 1,000 shots in. So 365,000 shots a year. I could shoot. I was athletic. That was something back in the day that not too many white kids could jump out of the gym. I was one of the few. I was one of the few. I think if you were to reach out to all my friends, they'd say, hey, the one thing Jeff could do is I could shoot a little bit, but I was athletic. I could get to the rim. We just played really hard and all the time, and we found any gym we could to play. We'd go down in Riverside, for instance. I would take my bike early in the morning. We'd ride my bike over to RCC, Riverside City College. We play for a couple hours there. Then we'd take our bike and drive up to Bobby Bonds Park, play a couple hours there. We'd go get something to eat, then we'd drive up to UCR and we'd play pickup games. And we did this, every day in the summer. I mean, that's just what we did.
Pickup is just, it's non-existent the way it used to be, where you go to a park and if you didn't win, you're waiting, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And you really had to learn how to compete and win because you didn't want to sit down.
Yeah.
And I think now these kids have so many games that they almost take it for granted. They'll lose a game and they know, we're back here at 3:00. You lose out, and we're playing again at 6. And it's just, there's no grittiness like it used to be. And I think that's how it sharpened, kind of men of your age. So if you could talk to our audience a little bit about your journey in high school and how kind of that shaped you to kind of get ready for college and, the kind of career you had. When was the whoa moment for you in high school where you realized, hey, I'm getting recruited, I have a chance to play college ball, and heck, if I'm good enough, maybe even NBA?
Well, I think it goes back to, my junior year of high school. I was playing, I did play at the Nike camp. I played in all the big camps. And I'm at Ramona one morning, and we have a shoot around, and I have Mike Krzyzewski in the gym, Raleigh Massimino, Jerry Tarkanian, Ben Howland, who was up at UC Santa Barbara at the time. But, I had all these coaches, Seth Greenberg, who I'm still very close with. They're at my high school practice. And I realized then that these guys are superstars. And if they're here to watch me, I must be doing something okay. Right. And the hard work did pay off. I'm not going to lie. But it was a grind. It was having Dad drive me out to UCLA. And the pickup games that you and I know are nothing like what it is today. You'd have to be invited to play, for one. You're on the court with Magic Johnson. You're on the court with Jason Kidd. You're on the court with Kareem, James Worthy. And like you said, if you lost, you were done for a while. And they would play 2-3 courts. But if you could play on that main court with Magic and those guys, you felt like, you cut your teeth. And I think
imagine playing with those guys, you had to fill a role, because it wasn't like they were going, you were Magic and Kareem and they're giving you the ball, right?
Yeah.
You got to set a screen, box out and rebound, get the open man. And then you learn how to really play the game, because you're not going to touch it because you're playing with these guys.
Oh yeah. Right? Yeah. And then when I was in the Bay Area up at Cal, my first year, there's Gary Payton in the gym. There's Mitch Richmond. There's Manute Bowl, who was a late great Manute Bowl, and there were great pickup games up there. And if you weren't good enough, they just would kick you out of the gym. Basically, if you weren't good, they'd get off the floor.
So I love talking with my Cal alumni brother, and so I was there 99 to 03, and your years were?
I was 88 through 91, or 88 through 90. So I was there 2 years. Played under Lou Campanelli. I loved the experience of Cal. I did. I loved living up in Clark Kerr, and I lived in Unit 1 Cheney. If those of you guys that are, but I went to college, and I think I wasn't prepared, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I was a very close-knit family with my mom and dad and brother, and I kind of felt rudderless when I went up there. I didn't want a red shirt because my senior year of high school, I signed early, but my senior high school, I was telling you, I had a compound fracture of my ankle, 6 o'clock in the morning. So I didn't play. I only played one game my senior year. I did get 40 though. So I want to say this, and I did get 40. It was but then I had to shut it down afterwards. And when I went to Cal, I didn't want a red shirt.
Mm-hmm.
So Lou Campanelli, the late great Lou Campanelli, was a good coach, great man, but just like in other sports or major college sports, you get fired, and guys come in and you're not in the circle of players. You've been through it, I'm sure. And so being immature maybe a little bit and wanting to play and being homesick, I transferred and ended up going to BYU for a short time, and then came back and played at Cal Baptist, NAIA school at the time. Then now they're Division I, and I think doing a great job. But I was able to fulfill my basketball part of playing my last 2 years at Cal Baptist, and because of my past resume, I was able to go overseas and play. I was cut by the Lakers. I played in the Summer Pro League with the Lakers 2 years. So I had 2 opportunities, came up short, but because of those opportunities, I was able to go play overseas because of my connections and the way I played. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a similar set. Now, with that Laker group, was that the Del Harris era?
It was. I remember they had a guy named Eddie Jones who was also, So it came down to myself or Eddie Jones. And I think they made the right choice because
I feel like they got that one right.
I mean, he was a great player out of Temple, and but I still have great relationships with some of those guys. I saw Byron Scott a couple weeks ago and worked a basketball game with him. It was nice seeing him. And these are guys that were my contemporaries. Now I'm an older man with them, but no, it was just great. I enjoyed every bit of my playing days. I wish Cal would have been a little better, just because I love the campus.
Yeah,
you were there. Great. Yeah, and it was the place I wanted to be as a student athlete.
Yeah. So talk to me about after Cal. You said you got with the Lakers, but they were the last cut, and then you went overseas. So I love hearing those stories because I've had a lot of experiences, across the water and teammates doing it. Talk to me about where you were and what that was like coming from America, and, in the college system where, everyone's a brotherhood, and then going overseas where you're kind of like by yourself a little bit.
Well, I went overseas. The first place I went was New Zealand.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so I was playing in New Zealand. I was on the South Island. I was with, at the time you could only have 2 Americans per team.
Okay.
So I had, it was me and Oliver Pig Miller. Remember Pig Miller?
Pig with China, actually.
Yeah.
Last, I think, leg of his career.
Yeah. Well, Pig Miller and I were roommates. We lived in Otago, which was the South Island of New Zealand. If you know anything about New Zealand, rugby's huge.
Absolutely.
So the biggest rugby team in the world is the All Blacks. Okay, so we were playing in Otago where the All Blacks play.
Yeah.
So there would be a rugby match. We would go to the rugby match early and watch the rugby match and not drink. Try not to drink because everybody's drinking at those things.
Oh, yeah.
And then in the evening, the fans that weren't either too drunk to go, they would stop and watch the pro game, the basketball games, and we would have a packed house of All Blacks watching us play, and it was surreal. It was just because you'd walk into this gym, it would be empty, and then the rugby game would get over. They'd come watch you play basketball, and it would be packed. They would have these loud clanker things. and guys are smoking cigarettes in the gym, and it was surreal, but it was a great place to play because I was like the hero. I had averaged like 50 points a game. I'd go out and get 50. It wasn't great basketball,
Sure.
but it paid for the bills. I don't remember having to pay taxes on any of that stuff. And I got to see the world, and I was kind of the hero there. And I went from there to Amsterdam, which is another great place to play. And was in.
I guess especially if you're from Berkeley too, right?
Yes, the smells were the same. The smells were the same. Yes. And then I went from there, went to Germany, played, and then played a little bit in Australia, where you did. So, yeah.
I guess I followed your path.
Yeah.
Took all the steps you took. So I wanted to say, I don't think you have lived until you've seen a bunch of drunken men do the haka, right?
Exactly.
And then, really get you motivated for basketball. But I want to take a second to pause right there with the fans and just take a break for our sponsors. We'll be right back with Mr. Gorham. Welcome back to Beyond the Buzzer. Continuing this conversation with Mr. Gorham, we left off with New Zealand and the haka. I want to talk about winding that career down, right? After traveling overseas. How long did you play overseas?
I was overseas for about 4 years.
Okay.
About 4 years. And it was, and I didn't come home in between those times, because the season, because you're trying to just latch on, play as much as you can, make as much money as you can. It wasn't great money, but it was still good enough money. And I came home, and I think it was because the injuries kind of caught up to me. Sure. And my senior year I broke my ankle, and ended up breaking my ankle 5 times over my playing career. So I think the last time I broke it, I was in Australia, and I laid on the ground. I said I broke it again. I said I think I'm done, and I decided to hang it up. I didn't play any pickup games or anything. I mean, since then I go out and shoot. I can still shoot, but no, I just gave it up. Gave it up and got into coaching.
Nice.
So
you got into coaching, because I remember we actually had a stint together, not coaching together, but against each other. You were at North Vista. Yeah. This was my first experience at coaching. I was at a private school, and you got ejected.
Hey,
Christian school.
Hey, all I know is this. Okay, and let's be honest. I was coaching at North Vista, and we were playing at Linfield, and yeah, I was a pretty fiery coach, like I was as a player. Yeah. I think I'm not that guy now. I mean, if I were to coach now, I'd probably be very quiet, and just because I'm old and don't care anymore. I got kicked out, and I remember thinking, I was up in Temecula, and my wife we lived maybe 1.5 miles from the school, and my assistant coach, he needed to get it, sharpen his teeth as a coach, so we were losing, so I did the old hockey move. I went off, told the ref, I said, I'm gonna yell and scream at you and curse at you. And I did. He threw me out of the gym. I remember walking across, and your parents were very gracious, very kind to me as I was walking out. I think they were they were saying something because I was having a meltdown. But I was able to call my wife. I didn't have to ride home on the bus with my kids. I think we ended up winning the game, but because of my hockey, So it was I was nuts as a coach. I did that for a long time, and I was at San Diego State. I was under Steve Fisher's first year at San Diego State. Brought him, I think, pretty good players. I was the person, and everybody can say that they can argue this, but I gave Marcus Slaughter, who was their first All-American, played out of John W. North High School, and I gave them their best player, which is Kawhi Leonard. I was coaching at La Sierra at the time, and they were in our league. That's always fun when you have Kawhi Leonard, you have Eric Wise, what's that? Tony Snell. Is that the guy that played? All these NBA players on one high school team, and Kawhi Leonard was like the third option on that team.
Yeah, he's a late bloomer.
And I remember getting my ass kicked at King, but I did do some weird stuff. Like I played 4-on-5. I put one guy on offense and sat underneath the basket. We played a 2-2 zone, so I would try to pull everybody out, and I suited up 20 guys, which means I fouled every time. And so the game lasted like 3 hours. We only lost, I want to say, by about 8 points to these NBA players. And the referees were cursing me out, telling me it was the worst game they ever saw. But I called Steve Fisher that night. Steve Fisher shows up the very next day just because of the relationship that I gave him with Marcus Slaughter. And I think that relationship started that night when I got my ass kicked by Kawhi Leonard. But then I went on to also coach over at RCC under legendary Bob Russo, Bob Schermerhorn. My father had great relationships with Tarkanian, Bill Mulligan growing up. So these were guys that I saw in my living room. I would love to go back a little bit here. My dad used to run this Sports World basketball camps, which had Magic Johnson under the label, Kareem, Jamal Wilkes, Bill Walton, Pat Riley, and the great John Wooden. And my dad was the director of all these camps. So as a kid, I got to go to these camps for free. That's how my dad got paid. He said, "You take my 2 kids, I'll run your camps." And I had I babysat Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's son at basketball camp at Pepperdine when I was a camper. So I had these great relationships. I do want to mention that my favorite story ever is my brother's 16 years old, and we're at the John Wooden basketball camp up in Thousand Oaks. And my brother's just got his driver's license. And my dad tells my brother, drive down the freeway and pick up John Wooden at his house. Wow. So I'm 12, my brother's 16. We're in an old VW van. We're going to drive and pick up John Wooden at his house. We knock on the door, we get in, John Wooden's in his den. We pull him out, we get him in the van, and I'm sitting in the back in awe. But I wasn't in awe just because it was John Wooden. I was in awe thinking, if my brother crashes and kills John Wooden, we're going to be known, we're going to be a Trivial Pursuit question. Who killed John Wooden? And I was going to say my brother, Justin Gorham, was going to kill John Wooden. But no, that was the only thing I was worried about is let's just get John Wooden from point A to point B without killing him. Yes. And it was a wonderful experience. He's turning, just imagine John Wooden turning behind, looking while we're in an old VW van talking basketball. Yeah. Nothing better than that.
I got a funny John Wooden story. Not going to match that. I didn't almost kill him. But going into a camp, I think it might have been my senior year, and I really wanted to go to UCLA. And I was always a John Wooden fan. You know, grew up, my dad was a big UCLA fan, and it was kind of instilled that that was the program. So he's watching us, and we're doing it's before he's getting ready to speak. So we're doing like a dunk contest, and we're just like, you know, all the athletes are kind of putting on the show. And I'm like, at that point, I can get up pretty high. So
yeah.
I can windmill at 360.
Yeah.
So I'm doing everything I can to impress this man, right? And he starts his speech, and one of the first questions asked to him is, you know, how do you like the game, and what would you like to change? And the first thing he says is, well, I'd like to see the dunk taken out of the game. So I'm just sitting there like, oh, right, he probably thinks, oh, this like a piece of crap, like that just showboating kid. So I remember thinking, like, in an effort to really impress this man, right, who's like legendary, I did the one thing he can't stand.
Yeah.
Right? And then now here we are. So
hey, I wanted to go to UCLA too. In fact, I was offered a scholarship to go to UCLA. Jim Herrick was the coach. The problem is I went on my visit to UCLA, and I asked him point blank. I said, you know, who are you recruiting? As you know, besides myself, basic question. And Jim Herrick says, well, if you know, he had that Southern drawl, but he was from Southern California. Yeah. I don't know if anybody knows. Oh, Jim Herrick, he's a Southern California guy. And he says, hey, Gorham, if you gotta ask who's recruiting you, you might not want to be a Bruin. And I'm thinking, wait a second, you're recruiting my best friends. You're recruiting Tracy Murray, Zan Mason, Mitchell Butler. I know the 3 guys they're recruiting. Just tell me, and I'm good. And so I ended up not going to UCLA. I wanted to go to Cal just to beat Jim Herrick for that comment. But yes, I wanted to be a Bruin as well.
Yes, yeah, lifelong dream. But Cal, definitely just still love it. Don't worry. So now you got into like radio, basketball. It was done. You know, you got out of coaching. Talk about like, because you've got a pretty good extensive career in just sports radio. You've done a great job. I know we had a stint together at UC Riverside.
Yeah.
I was director of operations here, and he was doing the radio and the announcing for the games. How did that even come about?
I was coaching at Norte Vista actually, and I would do interviews with the press. Dave Zink was a sports writer at the Riverside Press Enterprise, and Pep Fernandez.
Yeah.
And Pep would come out and interview me, and I was irreverent. I was nuts and did some funny stuff. I ran the system. I don't know if a lot of guys ran the Paul Westhead run and gun system my last few years because I had 5'6" Hispanic guys and they could shoot the ball. But if we play a half court game, I get beat by 50. Well, we ended up winning. My first year at Norte Vista, we went 0-20. And my principal said, hey, just make sure nobody quits. And I said, I'm not going to win a game because I started 4 freshmen and a senior. And I remember getting my butt handed to me several times. And then by the time those guys were seniors, we won 22 games. And the 22 we lost, we made up. We were 22-6. We got extra games, obviously, out of it. Made the playoffs for the first time. But Pep Fernandez would come interview me, and he and I got along. And I remember him calling me and say, out of the blue, he said, hey, why don't you give up the coaching? I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, you look like you're tired out there, and I think you could give more to the community. And I hadn't thought of any of that stuff. I enjoyed the media stuff because I wanted to be funny. But he really, Pep Fernandez changed my life in the sense that he gave me a voice to support my local community, the Inland Empire. We had the very first full-time Fox Sports Radio daily show, Monday through Friday. We were on 4 hours a day. I'd teach my class in the day and drive over and do this radio show. And then I was also calling games at UC Riverside with you. And it kind of snowballed into something big. We had the Inland Sports Show, which I've been a part of for the last 10 years. And I think the positivity that Pep Fernandez gave me extra opportunities. Like I'm the voice now of RCC football. I've worked for Spectrum. I've worked at UC Irvine. I work at all these big time Division I basketball. I've worked Major League Baseball. I've worked minor league baseball. These opportunities came because of Pep Fernandez. And I think that he changed my life in the fact that, I wasn't that crazy, out of control guy that people saw. I became a person that listened, and it was enjoyed giving the positivity. We never in 10 years, I don't think Pep and I have ever given a negative story to anybody, because there's no point to cover those things. Let the bottom feeders talk about all these horrible things. So we discussed, hey, if we're going to do this, we're going to be positive. And I've interviewed, I'm great friends with Jaden Daniels now because of this, who's Heisman Trophy winner, a number of great professional athletes because of Pep Fernandez. And it's been humbling because I'm a man of God, and it's been fun working with somebody who has great integrity and I think has made me authentic.
Yeah. Now, Pep is great, and you guys have been really good together. It's been fun to kind of watch you grow and how you guys have just created your lane. And, Pep is probably huge in fostering that for you, but I think you even go further back. I think just putting the ball in your hand and where that just took you, right? And I think Pep kind of brought you from there, but the game of basketball probably what introduced you to everything. I know a lot of my opportunities have come from just the sport, and that's kind of unique in how that kind of happens. We had an extent at Riverside. Let's talk about that a little bit. What do you remember from there? Because I was there a year. I was the Dobo and was really trying to get into coaching. That was like my foot in. And we had a really good time that year. What kind of memories do you have from UC Riverside?
Part of it goes back. I will talk. I have a great story I think we can share. We'll talk about that in a minute. But, I have a great friend, David Patrick, Mike Magpayo. Magpayo is now the head coach at Fordham University. David Patrick's the associate head coach at LSU. I talked to him last night after his victory at Boston College because I still watch his teams. Yeah. And the one good thing I can say about David Patrick is I can mention stuff to him about his teams, even at LSU, Arkansas, and places, Sac State. And he takes the things that I say and uses them. I'll see certain things. Yeah, he's running a little early offense, doing this, doing that. but I'm able to reach out and talk to those guys. Basketball has really truly been it's been everything to me. It really has. None of the things I'm doing now would have never happened without basketball. I wouldn't have met my beautiful wife. I wouldn't have my kids because of basketball. But UCR, just working with those guys, you know, I was kind of like an extended coach. The year you were there was with Dennis Cutts. Not too much because, you know, I think we were just coming in. That was like 10 years ago. But once they kind of got going, I was really entrenched and felt like I was part of the program. It's very, very much so. My favorite story, though, is we're up at Seattle University. I'm going to bring this up because this is funny. You know, this is the Lane Kiffin on the tarmac getting fired stuff. So we're in we're driving home, and Brian's either behind me or no, you always were in the front seat because you were the Dobo. And so Justin Bell, who's the head coach of Santa Margarita, is sitting in the seat right in front of me, and we're on the window. We're at Seattle University. The athletic director shows up, doesn't say anything to the head coach, and we see her as we come home driving in. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning.
2 o'clock.
It was 2? Was it 2?
3 a.m. I remember that.
So we're pulling up, and I'm called. My wife's driving up. She's waiting in the parking lot. Well, the AD is waiting in the parking lot for the head coach. And this is a funny story. It's not so funny for the Dennis Cutts, the coach, but he gets off the bus, and we're all, you know, we're up against the windows looking out, all wondering. The players are all going, oh my God, what's going on? The coaches are all saying something. Tony, our athletic trainer's behind me on one side, and we realized that he's getting fired. He's getting fired in front of all of us, and we're all watching this through windows. And my favorite thing out of that whole thing was I lean over, just over the seat, and I said, hey, good luck, Justin. Because he ended up becoming the interim coach, and I knew it was coming, but I think it was a great time after that, believe it or not. I think it brought us closer together. We used to, Pep and I used to mess with you all the time just because you're the Dobo, and we used to play pranks and stuff on you, but what a great time and a great atmosphere to be around college athletes. And I saw it kind of get better. It was bad. I saw it get really good. They've had several 20-win seasons now. So it was fun. It was great. I want to say the greatest 8 years of covering college basketball was covering at UC Riverside.
Man, that was awesome. Now, I shout out to Dennis Cutts because you gave me my first
Yes,
start,
and
I appreciated that. And that was cold how they did it, man.
But-
Getting fired at 2 a.m. in the parking lot, fresh off a road trip, airport bus. I mean,
oh, it was brutal.
called them in at 9 a.m. and, over some coffee and then have a conversation. So,
No,
that was brutal.
but that's Division I athletics.
It is.
And it's cutthroat, like you said. But it was a fun, great experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, loving this conversation. We do have to take another small break for our sponsors and our fans. And thank you guys for continuing to tune in. Please leave comments and feedback and let us know how you feel the conversation is going or if you have any questions. We'll be right back.
Let's go!
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Got a question for you, Jeff. I'd like to know what you're doing now and kind of tell the fans kind of where your life is now. I know you're set and kind of still doing the radio. Hear about your family. What's going on with the kids. What's day-to-day like for you now?
Well, I have 3 boys, 20, sounds funny when I say that, 20, 12, and 9. And all boys. I've got a beautiful wife, Carla. We've been married for 13 years now. My life could not be any better. I have the home, my dream home I want to live for the rest of my life. I have a swimming pool. I got a spa, so I can sit and rest these achy bones. But I think that the most fun I'm having now at 55, I turned 55 2 days ago, is the avenues that I've been able to pursue because of this media stuff. I've been the voice. I'm like Dick Clark, for gosh sakes. If you don't know who Dick Clark is, okay, I'm like Ryan Seacrest. I get to host, I'm hosting, I host the Festival of Lights every year for the city of Riverside, which is something completely out of left field for me. I host like bug fairs, insect fairs, whatever you want to call it. I do all, like, my goal for the next 10 years would be like Huell Hauser. Do you remember Huell Hauser from, he had this show, it was all about California. He'd go around and interview people about fun things that are positive. I want to just be a positive influence for my kids, my wife, and just kind of be the guy out in Riverside or wherever it takes me, and have fun. Just have fun. I'm 55. I deserve to have a little bit of fun.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's where I am.
Are your little ones, they play any sports?
My oldest boy's a surfer. My 12-year-old wants to be a movie director or an actor. He does stop motion picture stuff. He's wonderful at it. My youngest son, Luke, John's my middle son, Connor's my oldest, but Luke probably could play any sport he wants, but I'm letting him do whatever he wants to do. He wants to play baseball. He's played flag football. He's dominated soccer. He has not picked up a basketball yet, but he's the one kid that if I look at, I think he'll be a very good athlete. But I'm not going to be, I loved my father. I loved him more than anything. But I don't need to push my kids in the direction that I went, because that was the only avenue I had. I am able to give my kids whatever they want. If they want to, if they want to be artistic, if they want to be athletic, as long as they're busy, as long as they're happy, I'm a happy father. The best part of growing up with me, or growing up for me, was being with my dad. And basketball was that bridge that made our relationship close. And he was my best friend until the day he passed away.
So looking back on your life and your career, because you've had so many lanes, so many things you've done, most people don't do that. I feel like you've lived like 3-4 lives. Right?
Yeah.
Do you look back on like a time period where you go like, I wish I could do this over, I wish I was here, or like what lane, if you had to kind of go back again, would you dive into?
Well,
Happy where you are now?
I am the happiest I've ever been. I think that people look back, if they see this and they've knew me back when I was 18, 19 years old, a lot of people didn't like me, and they have all the right to do so. I was, like I said, I was immature, arrogant at times. I don't think I am those things anymore. I might be goofy, but I'm not arrogant. And I think if I could go back in my college years and stick it out at Cal, and not have been so set on, I'm going to go out and score 30. I think if I could go back and change everything, it would be that college experience.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
And then my final question for the audience, we always like to wrap it up with like a message for the youth. So to the kids that are watching the show, what advice would you give them in just terms of chasing their dream and what it looks like to kind of get where you want to go? And, just life lessons overall, or any life advice you might give for you.
If you want to, if it's basketball, since we were talking basketball, I think you have to put the time in. I don't think it's dribbling tennis balls and handling beanbags while you're doing drills, and everybody wants to make basketball harder than it is. Go out and work on your shot. You defensively, that's not anything. That's just effort, and that's something you have to have within. If you can combine all of those things and stay focused, I think anybody can do anything they want. I mean, the world is it's just a great opportunity, whether you're a fisherman, whether you're a teacher, a fireman, a policeman, just stay focused and have integrity and be authentic in everything you do. And when you do those and figure those things out, it took me a long time to figure it out. When those things click, life just seems to be very, very smooth.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Awesome lesson, awesome advice. Well, Jeff, you've been an awesome guest, man. I really appreciate you coming down and having this conversation. We definitely have to do this again. I think we can talk for hours, but I want to kind of keep it limited for our audience so we're not here all day, right? But there's certainly a lot of topics we could cover. So thank you for coming to the show, man.
You got it.
Appreciate it.
I had a great time. Great time.
Likewise. Fans, thanks again. Please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave feedback, comments. I'd love to hear that. I'm getting very positive reviews, and I just enjoy the feedback back and forth with you guys. Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Buzzer. We'll see you guys next week.
He's on his way, he's about to get paid. He's on his way to Hollywood.